why they're here. If you don't, hopefully you will by the end of the presentation. We've been together as a committee trying to figure out what we want to do and how we want to present it to the employees of this campus for about the last 8 months. The first thing I'd like to do is thank everybody that's on the panel today. We're still waiting on Mary Heron, but we have President Bardot with us, and we've got Frankie and Matt from HR. So I'd like to thank them for coming, and I'd also, and I've done this numerous times by email, that I work with has done a tremendous job. They've put a lot of time in, and I want to publicly thank them for the time that they've done. And everybody that's on that committee, I'd like you to stand, please. Okay, if your desks are up, you can, I guess. The way we're going to work this today is I've got a really short PowerPoint presentation. We're going to go through that PowerPoint presentation. If you've got questions, I'd ask that you hold them until we get done with the PowerPoint. And then when the questions are ready to be asked, I'd ask that you direct them to one of the individuals on the panel. And if that person is not comfortable in answering those questions, they will pass that question off to somebody that has more knowledge about that item. First thing I'd like to do is, this is what we are. The Alternative Service Committee. We've got 3 classifications of employees on campus right now. What we did is research an option to move away from the state civil service. We've had meetings, and you see that middle one. We still have meetings going on. You're welcome to attend any of those meetings. Minutes for past meetings are also on that website. This is a state law that mandates what we do and how we do it. There's been a ton of questions across campus about your retirement, your benefits, your flexible benefits. Your retirement's not going anywhere. Please understand that. Capers is Capers. You're going to stay with Capers if this move happens. There's going to be no change from us on Capers. That's all mandated by the state, not us. Second part of that is the Alternative Service Committee should develop a plan for administration of this system, and that includes personnel policies. So some of the things that you'll see today will be adjusting the policies on campus that deal with the classified staff if we make the move to university support staff. You notice that 4th item down there, another question that people have had. There will be no salary reduction based on this, and there will be no layoff because of this. And nothing for those of you that are involved with any kind of collective bargaining rights. Most of the physical plant classifications in the police department are both involved with those. There will be no change that will affect anything that they have unless there's negotiations that take part at the request of either one of the parties. And here's our recommendations. These are our high points. You all have white papers that go into more detail about these things. The appeals and discipline. The grievance process will take no longer than 32 working days. Now, that's not a given. If you have a grievance and you have multiple witnesses that are eligible to appear before that grievance committee, it could take longer. But that is the minimum time it will take. It will take no longer than that unless you as the grievant bring more witnesses too. The employee is going to be offered assistance from HR, and that's something that's being done now. And the final authority in this process, be it a grievance or a termination, will lie at the vice presidential level. It won't leave campus. If it needs to go further than that, that will be up to you as an employee to either hire an attorney or find a federal arbitration board that would handle it. Layoffs and furloughs. Know ahead of time that there are no planned layoffs, no planned furloughs. This is just in case. If feasible, 45 days for layoffs and 60 days notice for furloughs. The tie-breaking system has been streamlined a little bit, and again, assistance will be provided by HR, and bumping rights are extended across all divisions within the university. Performance evaluations. I'm not going to ask a question how many of you have had one this year because I don't want to see the number of hands that go up. But performance evaluations, the time will change from October 1st when they are currently due to March 1st, and the reason is because we're going to be looking at a merit-based salary increase. So we need to have those in a time that's appropriate to allow for merit increases. New trainings will be developed and will be provided for those that are giving evaluations. Supervisors are going to be held accountable for not giving those evaluations. And then the university, right now we have a 6-month probationary period. We're providing the option to extend that to 12 months. And part of that is because of our university police department. They hire individuals that then go to police training, and that extends past that 6-month period. So we need to have something on hand for them to extend from 6 to 12. Compensation and pay. Annual increases, when they're available, will be considered at the same level as faculty and unclassified professional staff. And we know that classified staff has not seen a raise since 2008. In that same time period, the unclassified staff and faculty on this campus have received 2 raises. If this move were to take place, we would get raises at the same time that the faculty and the unclassified professional staff get them. The longevity is something that the legislature right now is looking at doing away with. Anybody that came into campus and was hired or onto the state system and was hired after fiscal year 2008 doesn't get it anyway. But there are 2 bills currently on the floor with the legislature that is looking at taking that longevity away from people that currently have it. So those of you that are receiving it now stand the possibility of losing it. So what our proposal is that any of you that currently get longevity, that longevity pay is rolled into your salary. And it's a one-time thing. It would happen this year on the first of the fiscal year, that the amount that you are currently receiving would be rolled into your salary. And it would be based on dividing that number by 2,080, which is the number of hours you work per year. And that would be your new increase. And then any percentage raises after that would be based on that new base salary. We'll go over a slide a little bit later that will show that, and there are also handouts that are available. You can take a look at that. All employees will be moved from what you're currently making as far as an annual or your vacation accrual. You know that the classified staff starts out when they first get here at 3.7 hours of vacation per year, and it takes you 10 years to get to the 6.7 hours of vacation per year. Currently, unclassified professionals get 6.77 hours of vacation per year. Our proposal is that everybody gets 6.77 hours of vacation per year, no matter who they are and how long they've been here. Tuition assistance right now is limited to 5 credit hours, so you're limited to 1 class that is 5 hours or less. Our proposal is to take that up to 6 hours, so you could take 2 3-hour classes. We're also proposing that the stipulation that no other financial aid is allowed. So with our proposal, you would be able to get paid for 6 hours of class, plus apply for grants or scholarships, which is not allowed at this point. Thanks, Cheryl. Okay, how many of you are second or third shifters? Okay, this will apply to you. Employees receiving shift differential, that last item down there, you're currently receiving 30 cents an hour for that shift differential. And nobody seems to know how long that 30 cents an hour has been in place, but it's been here for a very, very long time. Our proposal is to take second shifters up from 30 cents an hour to 60 cents an hour for a shift differential, and those working third shift from 30 cents an hour to 75 cents an hour for a shift differential. So all second shifters would now receive 60 cents an hour for that shift differential, and all third shifters would receive 75 cents an hour for a shift differential. Across campus, that's roughly 110 employees. This is our longevity proposal, and we'll answer questions about this later. This just kind of breaks it down. This is taking a grade 21 step 14 employee as an example. Currently, they're making $19.16 an hour for an annual salary of $39,852. If we take their longevity pay, their bonus, based on a 15-year employment, that's $600. And you break that down by the 2,080 hours, and it becomes 29 cents an hour that they would see as an increase. Their new pay would be $19.45 an hour, or $40,872 annually. Because they would fall in between steps, and we want to maintain the step, they would fall in between a step 15 or a step 14 and 15, so they would automatically be bumped up to a step 15. You're not going to lose any money by maintaining the steps. So if you go up past the step 15 in this case, and you're in between a 15 and 16, you're going to go up to a 16. Okay, so you're not going to lose any money, but it will be maintained on a step level. And again, we've got a handout, and we'll go over this a little bit more later if we need to. So the new upgrade to the step 15 would take them to $19.65 an hour, because there was a 20-cent difference on that. The total difference would be a 49-cent an hour increase for an annual change of $419.20. Now, if you want to discuss your personal salary change, if you are longevity pay eligible, You can call 3030 and set up an appointment with either Ellen Abbey or Mary Karen, and they will actually run a piece of paper for you that will show you personally what your grade and step is and what the change would mean to you. Voting is taking place at the end of this month on the 30th and on the 1st and 2nd of May. If you want to log in on your own, this is where you go, My WSU. You log in. On the left-hand side, you'll see the Faculty Staff tab. Click on the Faculty Staff tab, and then go to Tools. And there will be an option under Tools that says Classified/USS Vote. Click on that, and it will take you to a link to vote. And once you get that link will then become unavailable once again. You won't be able to do it again. It will be disabled once you've clicked on it once. So you need to make sure that you vote. These are the locations of the voting. Voting will be set up in the RSC from 9 a.m. to noon if you need assistance or access to a computer. And it will also be at the Physical Plant Conference room from 1 to 4:45 on the 30th. On the 1st and the 2nd, we're looking at RSC 256, or again, the Physical Plant Conference room, for those of you that need any kind of assistance or access to a computer. And on May 2nd, we will be in the RSC room 240. Now, the people that are going to provide any kind of assistance, if you need it, will not be associated with this committee or with the classified staff in any way. We have asked that the student government man these locations. So there will be students at those locations to provide any kind of assistance. The other thing that you need to be aware of is you will be using your Shocker ID number and your password. So if you haven't logged in to use that anytime recently, you need to make sure over the next 3 weeks that it works and that you can, in fact, log in and vote. There will be no paper vote. This will be all online. So you will need to log in through with your Shocker ID and use the online system. Kevin, do I need to add anything to that? Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
The link won't go away. Once you click on that link, you'll go to the voting page. And at that point, if you haven't voted, you'll be given the opportunity to vote. Once you vote, if you go back and click on that link again, you're going to get a page that says you already voted, and we'll give you a timestamp of when you voted, so
Okay.
you know. The link won't go away. It'll appear at 8 a.m. on April 30th, and it will disappear at noon on May 2nd from within the portal. That's the only magic we'll do.
Okay, good enough. That works. Okay, for those of you that haven't paid attention, we are live broadcasting this so people can watch it over our webpage. We also have the capability of taking questions and providing answers to people via the internet. And this will happen on Monday and Tuesday as well. If you know anybody that won't be able to make any of these meetings personally, they'll be able to view it on the web and ask questions on the web. This is the end of the PowerPoint. And at this point, I'm going to leave this up so that you all can see when the voting is and the times and the locations. And we're going to open up the rest of the meeting for questions. And again, I would like you to direct your questions to an individual rather than just a group of us up here. And since Mary is not here yet, we're going to ask Ellen from Mary's office to come up and handle any of the questions that you would be asking Mary about the finance. Thank you.
So, my name is Darrell Carrington, and I have been employed here for about 5 years. I'm one of those who was hired after the 2008 budget, and my question is for Dr. Bardot. First of all, thanks for coming and putting yourself in the line of fire. So, it's one question, but it's a lengthy, so you might say get to the question. But Dr. Bardot, your obvious passion has earned you nicknames like the Hatchet Man, the Dictator, And it's really, your passion is evident and it's obvious, but there are many who don't really know you. I've been fortunate enough to accidentally run into you, and I had 10 minutes to talk with you. And I know everyone doesn't have 10 minutes. So the question is, can you share with us your practical approach as it applies to the labor force, the manpower on campus? You know, for example, it would be impractical of you to expand the university at the same time reduce the workforce. So if you can share us your perspective there. Thanks.
I didn't know I was a hatchet. I don't think I've actually let anyone go, which is kind of interesting. So
They don't know you. So.
yeah, no, I mean, yeah. I'm actually pretty impressed that people think I did, but I haven't. Generally speaking, what we're trying to do is grow the university. We have put out a target of about 22,000 headcount students. We're currently at 14,500 headcount students. We anticipate in the fall somewhere between 600 and 800 more students than we had last fall. So you can't do that and not have people working. Now we're going to try to be efficient, we're going to try to be effective. The state expects that of us. But I don't see us, unless something dramatic changes at the state level, of which I am unaware, I don't see us having any large-scale layoffs or anything like that. It just isn't, when you're growing a university, those things just don't tend to happen. I mean, it's just not what you are. Excuse me, does that mean no one's job will ever change? Heavens no. It will. I can count on that. You can count on that. Technology changes, people change, where you need people changes. But so we'll keep shifting those things around. But I anticipate if we are 2,300 roughly employees right now, I would anticipate by the time we're done with growing that we would approach 4,000 employees. So I don't really see going with less people, then they will be going with a lot more. We'll be opening a new residence hall that requires more staff. We're getting ready to tear down Weed Shocker and build a new engineering building. That will take more staff. We are moving to a 24-hour shuttle service for the people who live in Shocker Hall. That will take 8 more staff. So I just don't see that as a likely outcome here. I think it's a pretty straightforward. Growth brings with it the need for more people, not fewer.
Thank you.
I see that you cut the maximum amount of vacation time back to 176 hours. That wasn't really hit on in your presentation. Would you care to explain that?
Where's Wanda? I don't know why that was cut.
Actually, what the 176 hours. The maximum 176 hours is what you will be paid when you retire. There is a maximum of 304 hours that you can accrue, and you don't accrue anymore until you use some of that 304. The 176 is what you can only have, that is what you will be paid for when you retire or when you leave. That's all you can earn a year. Currently, all you can earn a year is 176 hours. But you can accrue up to 304. And you will be paid for 176 when you leave. Up to 176.
Is that right? Is that right?
That's all.
She's partially correct. Very good, Wanda. And she's correct as far as earnings per fiscal year. But at the time you resign from the university, that's true, that's the maximum amount. But if you are retirement eligible, you'll be paid out 240 hours of vacation. If you are retirement eligible. That's the difference.
Thank you for that clarification.
Did that answer your question? Okay.
Tom Esau Freeman. And I had a question. You said with all the new buildings and growth that, you know, we bring on more staff. Are you insinuating that that would mean more work for us? Like, we'll be working in those buildings, or will the private entities that brought those buildings and built those buildings be taking care of them for the next 10 years?
It will depend, the question, I think is a good question. It will depend on the nature of the building. We own Wheat Shocker. In the sense it is owned by the Radigan Student Center. And so employees of the Radigan Student Center or housing will run the building.
You're aware that we used to work in Wheat Shocker painting.
Right, I understand. But I don't see that as, I don't know why that would change. I don't see them doing anything different than what they've always done in terms of how housing uses our staff. This is still under housing. That's not a privately owned building. That is owned by RSC. Okay, so it's, you know, that, or actually that's not true. It's owned by housing. RSC loaned us the money to build it. The Engineering 2 building is owned by the university. The new building that will be built where Wheat Shocker is a university building. The building that will house the business school is a university building. The Innovation Campus number 1 is likely to be owned by the private sector, and they will then hire the people that run it just like they do any other building that they own. So it will totally depend on whether the building is a university building or whether it is a building that is owned by a third party. And if it's a third party, they will either contract with the university for service, which they can do if they choose to, or contract with somebody else. But if it is a university building, we will do it the way we've always done it. There's nothing different there.
So there is opportunity for us now?
Oh yeah, what's going to happen is we're going to have a mix of buildings. There's going to be some that we will own, some that others will own. There's one building we're looking at, for example, that if we entered a negotiation, we would lease back the building and we'd run it. So even though it would be privately owned, it would be our building. We would maintain it and do all the things we normally do with it.
Right, but I'm saying when we run it, that means we would have the work and the opportunity to move into supervisor positions, and subcontractors wouldn't be hired in to fill those roles.
Not for our buildings, no. You know, I can't tell you what somebody who owns a building will do in terms of if, I don't know, if Steve Clark builds a building on our campus, Steve, it's his building, so he can do pretty much what he wants with it. But if we build it and we own it, then we will do like we've always done. Okay.
Hi, my question is, you have the dates up here about the voting, but as you know, some of employees here, like example, physical plant, they don't have access to computers. They don't get online. So is there a possibility, since you're voting online, if they can maybe establish in the next 2 or 3 weeks before the voting, laptops at the physical plant so the employees can go and get online for the first time and register and be able to vote?
We've actually had some communication. I don't know what is. That's something that could be possible.
Yeah.
We've had some communication with Woody about allowing people to do that. And of course, the 1 to 4:45 on both those days is set up so that first and second shifters can take advantage of that time there in the conference room. And we will have laptops available that we'll provide. And if we need to provide them for people to take time to log in and make sure that access is available, we'll make sure that happens. Thanks, Sheila.
I don't know who to address this to, but I hate to bring the doom and gloom, but I'm going to ask the question about what happens if the body votes no.
If the body votes no, we stay where we are now. There's no change unless the legislature changes it. Proposal right now in front of the legislature is 1.5% increase, but that doesn't include Regents employees. So everybody else gets 1.5%, we get nothing. Okay? There is also a bill that's in front of the legislature that's on hold right now, and we've talked to members of the committee. It's on hold only because the universities are taking the option to make this vote, but it's to do away completely with the classified staff within the entire state. It's not just on university campuses. That legislation right now is on hold until these votes have all been taken across the campuses. The other thing that some of you may or may not know is every one of the other Regent schools has already voted to move forward with university support staff. We're the last ones to take the vote. The other 5 have voted to move forward with it. Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yes.
Okay.
President Bardot, are all the universities, are they going to all have separate policies and procedures, or are they all going to be the same?
No, as far as I understand it, all the universities have separate policies and procedures, and ours will be tailored to our particular situation.
Any part of it uniform between them?
Well, I think, all of us comply with federal and state law, so all of those things will be uniform. My suspicion is there's been a lot of conversation among the schools, so that there'll be some things that appear to be working, so that I wouldn't be shocked to see that in ours. But I'm not part of that. Frankie, I don't know whether you're the person who can manage the Okay, I caught her misunderstanding. Yeah. But anyway, I'm sure there have been conversations, but I've not been part of them, so I can't answer beyond that. But we will all comply with federal law, we will comply with state law, so I'd assume those commonalities will for sure be there.
I have a question here. Kevin Straub. I'm the president of Chapter 2604 for K. And I've seen what's happened up there in Kansas University since they went to university staff. And what I've heard from members that were working there and not working there any longer, that they've had a turnover of 80% it's 5 years since this happened, and not a lot of happy people up there. And also, they haven't had any much more raises than what we got now. How do we know that the university, the regents, are supporting raises for us at this level? And some other staffs, end up getting it. And then also think about the performance-based raises. Out through history, I've ever heard about it. It's never worked wherever I've been at. It ends up just certain people that are favored by supervisors or management get the raises, and nobody else. They perform the job every day. They show up for work. But these people, they can do anything, and they're going to get the raises. And I don't see that actually working, because that's the way it usually historically works.
Yeah, I guess I have a very different opinion of that, because I've been mainly involved in all my career, including here, when I started in merit-based raises, and I always felt that they worked a lot better and increased morale among those people who are actually doing the work. And those people who simply showed up and did the minimum probably didn't help their morale, but on the other hand, they weren't helping the institution or the organization or their colleagues either. So I'm not so sure that my experience comports with yours in terms of how merit works. As far as raises, I can't guarantee you what any group is going to do in the future. What I can tell you is I am putting forward raises, and I have every reason to believe that the regents will accept those raises for this year. I will put them forward again next year. I believe we are, as an institution, our salaries are not competitive with where they need to be. And so I'm going to continue proposing raises as long as I'm president, until such time as it looks to me like we have moved our numbers to where they make sense. Even then, we'll still follow at least cost of living if I'm the president. Now, does that mean that the regents can't say no? Well, of course they can say no. That's their authority. But I have seen no evidence that they have any intent to do so. I've not been told not to propose raises. I've made it very clear that that's my intent. And they have every opportunity to tell me to stop. They haven't. So, all I can tell you is I can't predict the future any better than you can, but my experience with them is that if I make the case and I show them what we're trying to accomplish, that I get support. I am proposing 3% for this year as part of a package that will go forward, and that's what I'm proposing. And if you are part of the university employment, that 3% applies to your group as well. So I am making an assumption for the purpose of budgeting that I will have to pay that 3%. That's not to predict what the outcome of the vote is. I just have to, by the nature of how the vote's going and how I have to prepare budgets, I have to make that prediction. But that is what I'm recommending to the regents, and we'll see what they say about it. But I have absolutely zero reason to believe they won't approve it.
Randy, my understanding is that House Bill 2750 also is proposing 3%, not 1.5%.
I haven't read it recently. I haven't read it recently. When I read it 2 months ago, it was 1.5, and it was for everybody but Regents employees. Okay, well, I haven't read it since then, since before then, or after then, so it could very well be a 3%.
I've read it, and it's, depends on your wage as to how that works.
Okay, I know which one you're talking about. There is a proposal to give raises based on your income. Those that are employed at the lower incomes would see a 3% raise. Those employed at the higher incomes would see less. It's graduated from 3% down to 0.5%. And that's a proposal that's in there along with several others, but I do remember reading that now.
Everybody making under 35 would get 3%.
That's right. If it passes, but again, what about those that are making over 35? Then that number goes down.
Oh, it's going to pass because it's the same bill that does away with longevity.
There's a good chance of that then.
So then why would we put away our civil service rights if they're going to pass that?
If they're going to pass that, that means if you make more than $35,000 a year, which quite a few people do, you're going to not make the same amount.
In this room?
Yeah, there's a few in here that do.
I'll bet you I could throw a rock and not even hit it.
Okay. Well, that being said, that bill is in there, and the longevity is in there as well. How long has it been since we've seen a raise? How long would it be again before we saw another raise? We're in an election year. What does that tell us? They're going to do what they can to appease the masses.
I'd like to remind everyone to please wait till a microphone comes to them. That way we can hear it on the live stream as well.
Yeah, I was just wondering if somebody could explain like the budget and how these things would be funded. Are we going to be lumped in with the money for like faculty salaries? Are we going to have, like, when it comes down to hiring somebody to teach all these extra courses that we have going versus hiring like the staff members? Or is that going to be an issue in terms of, because like right now we're fighting really hard for faculty positions and we're not able to hire, so where is the money going to come?
Yeah, the way this works won't change. As president, I allocate positions, and I allocate positions to the various divisions, and the divisions then decide what they need. There is no proviso that we have a certain number of staff or a certain number of faculty or whatever. We allocate where we think it's necessary. Those funds come from internal funding. There's no state extra funding if we decide to create a position. And now, given the state's unwillingness to raise our base support from the state, those positions will all come either from tuition or fees. And that will be exactly the same way whether you are part of civil service or you are not part of civil service. That doesn't change anything as far as how we budget. That's exactly the same. And the allocation of positions, the decision to have a position or not have a position, is based on the perceived need relative to other needs.
You were talking about raising the amount of vacation time we earn to 6.7 hours. Are you also going to raise the amount of sick leave we earn per pay period, or is it going to stay the same?
Sick leave will stay the same. That's what everybody across campus gets now. There won't be any change in that. And the proposal is 6.77 for those of you that are making 6.7 now. All you're going to see is 0.07 of an hour increase.
On your longevity bonus pay formula, after the vote's taken, is everybody's longevity frozen at that time for the years that they have service?
The longevity will be figured at what you earned in fiscal year 14. So this current year, yes, so whatever you've made this year, that's what will be added to your base.
But that will be frozen?
Correct, correct.
So someone with 10 years old will always be at 10 years for that base salary?
Yes, that's correct.
There will be no addition to your longevity after this year. Jeannie?
I think Anthony's got
Okay.
I
actually have two questions. The first question, and I'm not sure who to address this to, is the other regions that have approved this, you say your recommendation is that that the regions give you a raise, or the legislature. Did they receive their raises? And then also, well, I'll let you answer that.
At this point, nobody knows about raises across the other schools, and it's up to the individual schools with the approval of the regions. The legislature has nothing to do with those schools anymore as far as raises are concerned. It's up to the president of the university on those 5 universities and his financial vice president to determine if there's money for raises or not.
So
And all but KU, who did theirs 10 years ago, were just recent moves within the last 6 months. So nobody has seen a change in the fiscal year yet to see whether or not raises are available.
Well, my next question was, do you have any concrete information as to the pros and cons of what the other schools have gone through? You know, you tell us that they've gone through it, but you're not giving us the pros and cons of what the results of that are.
Every one of the other schools has done it. The vote was a 2-to-1 vote in every school but KU. I'm not sure about KU because of how long ago they did it. There's been no massive turnover since then at any of those schools because it has been so recent. And I can't tell you the pros and cons because every campus is different. Every faculty and staff and employee, everybody on those campuses are different. We're not the same size as Pittsburgh or Fort Hays or Emporia. We're not a KU or a K-State. So what's going to happen here will be different from them. Now what I can tell you is if you go to the WSU-ASC website, there are links there to every other school and to their alternative service committee pages. So you can go there and take a look and see if they've put anything up that says this is what's happened and this is what hasn't happened. KU's had the toughest time because they were the first ones. They're the ones that broke through the rock and the stone and paved the way for the rest of us. So they've had a tough time. But nobody else has. As far as benefits, I can't tell you what the other schools see. They've asked for pretty much the same thing we have.
Guys, I had a question with the shift differential here. Who made the choice to offer a shift differential to second and third shift, but not first shift? This almost seems like, I mean, it's a raise written in. If they vote for this and get it, you're offering both second and third shift a 30-cent raise. So does that not seem like somehow tampering with votes here to make sure that, you know, you're going to get a raise to do that?
Right now, second and third shifters are getting 30 cents an hour more than you are anyway.
Good, they should.
And that's
But
why...
why are they getting another 30 cents?
Because 30 cents...
Hold on, let me finish, please.
You don't have a microphone right now, you saw so...
Sorry, I didn't have the magic wand, my mistake. If they're getting 30 cents over now, and I think second and third shift should get an extra 30 cents, but why are those shifts specifically in these pages being given another 30 cents and first shift isn't? You're giving 2 shifts a raise and not first shift.
That's right.
Yeah, and why is that?
Do you want to work second shift?
Sure, I can work second shift. That's not the question.
I understand what
though.
the question is, I'm just asking, I'll get there.
Well,
Okay?
let's get around the bush and tell me where we're at, Randy.
Okay, the shift differential is because of the hours they work, and because those are hardship hours. That's why they get the difference, and they're getting that difference right now. I've been here 28 and a half years. That shift differential has not changed. It is not industry standard. If you go around industry, what you find that close to $1 an hour is what industry standard is. And there is a difference between second and third shift paid industry-wide. Second shift gets less than third shift does because of the hours.
Yeah.
We're giving them an increase because we have not increased that 30 cents an hour in 30 plus years. We ask our custodians to come in and clean up the filth that is put into this campus over an 8-hour day. Not that everybody else doesn't work hard either, but they come in second shift. I wouldn't want to work a second shift. I have, and I don't like it. If somebody were to offer me an extra 30 cents an hour, would I do it? Probably not. If they were to offer me an extra 60 cents an hour, I'd consider it. Third shift is even worse. Those guys come in, they work ungodly hours, and then they go home and sleep when everybody else is awake. It's not natural to me to sleep when the sun's up. I want to be outside. I want to do something outside. So we're offering a little bit more for the third shifters to give them some incentive to stay third shift.
But my question was, why is it tied in with the vote, Randy? That's more my question, because I understand your plight of the worker, and I appreciate you appreciating the plight of the worker.
Right, I think I understand your question. You're voting on a proposal that has to include what pay is going to look like, or it makes no sense to have a proposal at all. And so what the proposal is longevity will be handled in certain ways, and shift differentials will be handled in certain ways so that you know what you're voting on. That's the issue. But to not have those in on the vote wouldn't tell people what they're actually voting on, and it would not give them the information that they need to make a good decision. The proposal is that the vote carries with it these kinds of things associated with longevity, these kinds of things associated with raises, these kinds of things associated with shift differentials. That is the proposal, and that's actually what they're voting on. So to say, well, you shouldn't tell them that is to say you shouldn't actually know what you're voting on, and that makes no sense.
Well, I'm not saying that it's not particularly clever where it was written in and how it was placed into this. What I'm saying is why not just give everybody a 30-cent raise?
Well, because we're not.
As opposed to cleverly writing it in here, the shift differential.
Well, I greatly appreciate that, and I would love to think everyone who involved in this was that clever. That speaks well for them. But the bottom line is, in the end, the proposal is that longevity will be handled in a certain way, that raises will be handled in a certain way, and that shift differentials will be handled in a certain way. That's the proposal. To not speak to the proposal makes no sense. People need to know what they're voting on, and that's what they're in fact voting on. So it's like saying, I'm going to vote on having a car, but you can't tell me which car I'm going to vote on, which car I'm going to get. This is what the proposal actually is. So I don't actually think it's particularly clever. I think it's very honest that this is what they're being asked to vote on. So.
Hey, Mr. Pardone, Tony Foster. Say, do you still anticipate that the state keeps cutting funding to the schools?
I'm sorry?
Do you still anticipate that the state keeps cutting funds to the schools? Is this part of the whole deal too? They're giving you less and you got to make money?
No, I can't tell you what the state's going to do from year to year. I don't even know who's going to be in the legislature next year. What I can tell you is that we made it through this year's budget with no cut. And what we're looking at is if there is no cut, which I anticipate, I know that's true for this year, I'm hoping it is true for next year. So what I'm looking at now in terms of budgeting is how do I get us to a position as a university where we have the funds we need to operate, where we have the funds we need to compensate people fairly and reasonably, and where we can give the highest quality education to our students that we can afford to give. That's what we're about. And so I just, I'm trying to figure out how to answer that because I can't predict the future. I don't know what they're going to do, but there's a downward pressure on taxes, and that downward pressure on taxes will continue. There's pressure for us not to increase our tuition, but our tuition is low relative to other schools that are offering the same kind of programs we're offering. So we're going to continue working on assuring that we have the best possible budget that we can have to meet the needs of our folks, that we can give the best education to the best research. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah, and I know some people thought that, if our raise were tied to tuition, if we raise tuition, then kind of like the bad guys.
Well, the raise, new funds to the university will be tied to tuition and fees increases. There's no question of that. But it also to other sources of revenue that we're trying to develop, like patents and licenses and other things that generate revenue for the university that are not directly charged to the student. Grant and direct costs, those kinds of things that can provide some fungible money for you to be able to do some of to run the university with. So a lot of what we're trying to do is to create those other forms of revenue as well. But I think for the purposes of conversation, as Mary and I continue to talk about these things, we make the assumption that the base budget is always going to be tied to tuition fees and state support.
Do you guys ever do a study on the impact that WSU has on the Wichita economy? Put that out as a positive, for everybody to benefit from?
Yeah, it's pretty dramatic in terms of what we already do, and it's going to even be more dramatic as we stand up this innovation campus and we get more engaged with businesses and with the private sector than we've been. So I can't tell you what the numbers are off the top of my head. I think someone's probably done a study of that somewhere along the line, but we obviously have a big impact. Our multiplier out there is quite substantial.
And I think what I'm trying to say also, once in a while we ought to stand up and toot our horn about it.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
So also, I think we ought to stand up once in a while and toot our horn about
Yeah,
it.
if you notice, if you read the Eagle and the Business Journal or watch the news, we're doing a lot more of that now. It's taken us a while to be willing and comfortable doing that. But I love this university, have for 40 years, and I'm out there telling the story, and people are starting to pay attention. It's been gratifying to see the number of stories in the Eagle, for example, on an ongoing basis now about the university and the kind of impact we're having. So the basketball team has helped us a lot. A lot of people followed that and therefore paid attention to us as a university in ways they hadn't before that. So I think it's getting better. We'll continue to try to push on that. But it is having, I think we're seeing already some impact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm just curious.
Sorry, thanks. If you someone, when you do have the mic, if you would wait it because it's kind of coming out of the ether. I don't usually have that happen except in church. So, okay.
If the vote comes out, 60% would like to go to the alternative service, and 40% want to stay with civil service. Are we still all going?
Yes.
The alternative?
Yes.
Thanks.
First of all, I want to preface the question that I have by saying I am very, very proud to be an employee of Wichita State University, and I think there's a lot of people, even in this room, that could probably leave tomorrow and make a lot more money than they make right now. That having been said, and that's part of it as well. You know, we take great pride in being part of the Wichita State family and part of Sharper Nation. And that's why we are here. A lot of the things that are going on, the hourly differential and shift work, that is so different from department to department, from college to college. One of the things we're seeing right now, I'll talk on my particular situation, and it's at a college level, hiring freezes, and that includes faculty. At the administrative level, assistance level, people that have quit and moved on, they are not replacing those positions. So basically the rest of us are absorbing those responsibilities. But yet I'm seeing faculty, I'll be perfectly honest, faculty that work a 9-month contract, they get paid differential pay, they get paid mileage, they get paid if they are a department chair, they get paid. It's all extra money, extra money. And what my question is boiling down to, we have not had a raise since 2008. And it's almost, what was the comment to me when we got the one raise that was based on the survey that was done, that we were all underpaid. They immediately cut it after the one time. And I actually had a person come up to me, making a 6-digit salary, that made the comment that, boy, it must be nice to get a raise. And I'm sorry, have some respect for the classified employee, have some respect for what we bring to this community. And that to me means more than your pay raises, or I got my very first longevity, and now that's all the longevity I'm going to get. And I guess this is more, I didn't mean to get on a soapbox here, but just give us some respect. And I think that would mean a lot to all of us.
My question is if the Board of Regents gets their money from the state, is that correct? Or how did the Board of Regents?
The way this works is that the state gives us a block grant. It comes from the state to the university. So we get a specific amount of money from the state. That represents, do you remember the percentage? 20-something% of our budget, of our gross budget now. Most of the rest of the money, all the rest of the money comes from tuition, fees, sale of services, meaning, and research. Sale of services, meaning people who live in housing, people who buy food at the RSC, those kind of things. The state contribution to the running of the university's budget now is a substantial minority of the total budget that we get, and that does come directly from the legislature as a block grant.
Frankie, can you answer this? Because for me, it has more to do with like, what are we exactly asking here on page 5 at the top for salary increases? It says the recommendation would be for the annual increase to be considered at the level at least equivalent to those given to the unclassified administration and professional staff. Now, when I read that, that doesn't say to me that the raises will be given at the same level. It says that they will be considered. Is that true?
That's
okay.
correct.
Okay, so this doesn't nail us down to getting the same type of raises as the unclassified employees. The budget can still be broke down where they may get a larger portion than we if that's the way things go.
I believe President Bardo addressed that earlier when he stated that it's merit-based.
Okay, so the consideration is based on merit performance?
Yes.
And can we have some examples of those merit performances,
Let me
please?
explain to you the way that I really see this working. In terms of, and I think there's going to need to be work as you go through this process on the actual merit and evaluation processes that everybody wants those to be improved. The way that I conceptualize this working is that Mary will give us, will know what the salary pool is for each type of employee that we have at the university, in terms of each general classification of faculty, unclassified, and then support staff. And that salary pool, we will take 3% of that, if this is next year, or for next year. We will take 3% of that pool, and that will become the raise pool for that group. Then how it is distributed will be dependent upon the rules within the specific group. So for example, in faculty, there may be different rules than there are in staff, but the 3% is the 3% is the 3%. It's so that the pool itself is the same. Where could there be a difference? There are certain fields where costs are escalating at an unbelievably fast rate. And so it may be that if we have to go into a field and say, given this, we're going to give everybody 3%, but in this particular area, we've got to give a lot more than that just to get our people to market to where we can hire at all. And so it is possible we would do something like that. Don't see that as a regular occurrence, but that's always possible. It's possible now. It's no different. What I see this doing is basically saying we've got 3 pools of money, and we put whatever the raise is goes into the pool in the same way. So if it's faculty, they get 3%. If it's classified staff, they get 3%. If it's a support staff, they get 3%. It's very straightforward.
And I guess I just wanted to be clear about what the consideration was, and you're saying that's tied to the merit-based system. Okay. And can you give us particular examples of the type of merits that you're going to base your decisions on? Because everyone's worked at this university long enough to know that sometimes things get slow, or sometimes we don't have any money in the budget to get the materials we need. So how does that reflect on the individual employee?
If you do your job, you don't have control over whether materials are in or not. You get to order them, and if they aren't available, they aren't available. That doesn't affect your ability to do. That doesn't affect you doing your job. It affects whether you can get it done or not because you don't have the materials. But if you're doing your job, you're doing it well, you get, you're meritorious. And there are other things outside of your control. They are outside of your control, and that's the nature always of these things. So I think that my experience with merit raises are that people who come and do a good job, if we have a reasonable evaluation process, get reasonable raises. And those who just show up to work and do the very minimum will probably get lower evaluations and will probably get less money. That's just a reality. And so I think that is what the intent of the proposal is, as I understand it. And I don't see that as different. That's what we do with faculty. That's what we do with unclassified staff now. So. A waiver up there at the top.
Casey, Robin Dodson, I work in Dirkston. I guess I'm a newer employee, I've only been here 2 years. I bring 30 years of experience in the private sector of custodial work, both residential and commercial. I guess my question is, from what I see, and I guess it's more of a comment, from what I see, you have a lot of talented people here in their field of both knowledge and experience to take care of buildings that you have. And I know I speak for a lot of people when I say this, but we really need the decent equipment to do our job. In the 2 years I've been here, in the zones that I've been in, we've repaired our vacuums and our scrubbers. And you know, you can only make something work for so long, and you're only going to get the value of a job out of what you have to work with.
One of the really big issues that we have as a university, and I've been sharing this with the regents, so I'll be sharing it with them again in a bit, in the next month or two, is that a number of years ago we made a decision to keep our tuition down, to try to promote access. And that's, I mean, I get that. That's a really important thing to do. You want people to have the opportunity to go to college. The problem with keeping your tuition down the way we kept it down is that the basics then got harder to cover. It's hard to get a piece of equipment. It's hard to get a chair repaired, hard to get a new desk, because we simply didn't create the pool of money necessary to do that. One of the things that we did this year, for example, is we replaced hundreds and hundreds of desks in classrooms because the desks were so old. Many of them actually were more like high school desks than college desks, and the kids couldn't even fit into them. And so many of them here when I taught here 30 years ago. And so this is we're in that situation now where we're playing a bit of catch up. And so part of my interest in growing the university is to try to generate the funds to be able to operate at a reasonable level. And that means for you and others to have the equipment that they need to do their job. It means having enough people that we can actually get the job done. And it means having the right people in the right places. But we let that go in the name of keeping access. And I get that. I really do. It's not a complaint. It's just there's a point at which you got to balance that and say, wait a minute, access to what? Access without quality is no bargain. It's just a reality. And so what we're trying to do now is to give access with quality so that it is a bargain. We're repositioning this university around value, not cost. We were trying to sell ourselves as a low-cost competitor, and that isn't very helpful. I don't know about you, but if I'm going for surgery, I'm not going to call around and say, hey, this guy will spread a blanket on my floor and do it in my living room for $20, and if I go over here, I got to go to the hospital and it's going to be $2,000. I'm going with a $20 guy with that Black & Decker saw. I mean, that's not the way you think about things that are life-changing, and education is life-changing. So we're trying to catch up a bit there, and it does affect you and it affects everybody.
And that's why I make the comment, you have a lot of talented people
Absolutely.
in their field here who can work with equipment like this, but yet when the public come, we just had tons of junior high and high school kids over in Dirkston a couple weeks ago. And I heard so many comments about the great condition of the building, and that's what I mean. I think sometimes the good people who have the knowledge and who are making WSU look good to the outside world aren't really appreciated as much, but yet with what they're working with shouldn't even be in.
I understand what you're saying. I really do understand what you're saying. And it is, we are blessed here with good people. There's no question of that. This is a very special place. One of my favorite people when I was a faculty member was a woman who cleaned the second floor of Neff Hall. Because I worked at night many nights and I got to know her pretty well. Mrs. Molman was her name. Some of you may remember her, been around here a while. But she was a wonderful woman. And I came from a long way away, and she made me feel at home. I came here from Ohio, and my family was all there. And she was part of why I felt at home here. And so I do have a sense of what you do and who you are and the kind of work you're trying to do. And there's no question that we're blessed with great people here. That's what makes this place special. What we're trying to do now is to move the university into a position where we can support you at as reasonable level as we can get to, given the way the backlash of the public about paying for public things. I understand that. But we're still going to try to get as close to reasonable as we can get in my time here as president.
Well, I know a lot of people on my level live paycheck to paycheck.
Right.
They don't get to take family vacations. They can't afford it. They can't buy a new car. They can't afford it. They're lucky to pay the water bill and have food on the table.
Right.
And to come and give 110% every day for 8 hours, and then have, I'm a single person. I don't want to be in the position where I have to get into a relationship or take a second job. I worked 2 jobs my whole life. I took this job to use my knowledge.
Sure.
But I think if a person's given 110% and they've proven that, then, some help would be nice.
I understand. That's what we are trying to do, for sure.
Thank you.
Mr. President, this is Kevin again. About the parity, not the parity, the raises based on merit. Is that a one-time raise? It's when you're not at that stage where you don't have the merit raises, you drop back and then somebody else takes it, you only have so many people in a shop?
Oh, I see what you're saying. No. I hope you don't want to implement it that way. The intent is that you have 3%. If a lot of people are really good, then probably everybody gets 3%. If we've got half the people doing really well and some others just kind of dragging along and doing the minimum, then someone might get 4% and someone else 2%. So it will vary, but that will be reassessed each year. But it isn't a matter, well, you got it this year, so I get it next. That's not the way it works.
Is the person who writes your evaluation going to set these amounts that you're going to get the raises or not, or how many?
We'll still do the evaluations, whether or not there are raises. Sure, they need to be annual evaluations. But I don't anticipate, unless the regents change dramatically, that there would be no raises. I mean, it's possible. Anything can happen. But I don't anticipate that.
So sometimes you may be out of luck. Next time you may get something. But what if you have a problem with your supervisor? And maybe your performance is handicap-based. I see a lot of people out here, language barriers out here too.
Oh, sure.
Age barriers.
Sure, but those folks tend to do a good job too. I mean, I know a number of people here who are Vietnamese, who are older folks as well, and my hat's off to them. The ones I know do really good work and do it well, and I don't see a difference there or a distinction. So, I think what we're looking at is we have good people who do, on average, good jobs. If someone isn't pulling their weight, then they shouldn't get the same as everybody else. I mean, that's just a reality. But I don't see these things as rotating or moving from place to place or anything else. I think it is really a matter of, if you do your job and we have raises, you'll get a raise. I mean, that's just straightforward.
Well, a lot of times out here, I've seen this over the years, no supervisor gives anybody a superior evaluation. Everybody got an average, even the bad, the excellent ones. And then there's those that they communicate better, so that everybody thinks of them as the superior worker, and I guess just what they say and what they go in there and schmooze with. I mean, I'm not a smoker, I'm not a drinker, I'm not a hunter. And you have your old pals, like your drinking buddies, and if you're like that, you're going to get the good write-up, and if not, you're just going to be average or less.
I guess in any organization there can be a bad supervisor. That's always true. What I would say to you is that our intent as we continue to move forward is to also evaluate the supervisors. And I know that, for example, in some departments there have not been evaluations, even though they're mandatory every year. well, that supervisor isn't performing his or her role if they're not doing the evaluation. That's just fundamental. And so we're looking at how do we structure this in such a way that we evaluate. I evaluate the vice presidents. I don't know whether that was done before I came here or not, but I am doing it. And did it last year, and we'll do it again this year. Because I'm looking at performance there too, and whether they are moving the institution in the direction that it needs to go. I anticipate that Tony, I think he's gone, but I expect that Tony will evaluate the deans. I expect that Mary will evaluate the associate VPs and the directors, and that we will continue doing those things to improve performance all the way along the line, because I don't see merit as just being a line worker thing where, I'm the person, hammering the nail or whatever, and I get evaluated, but my supervisor does it. Absolutely not. The supervisor should be evaluated. I'm evaluated. My evaluation will be in May. I've had to fill out all kinds of stuff, and the regents will evaluate me. So it's to me, it starts with me and goes through everybody else. So.
I was looking here at the inclement weather pay, and it says to retrain supervisors on how inclement weather pay works. Are you guys looking at changing how that works, or is it going to stay the same?
We're not looking to change the inclement weather pay, but through the discovery process and many meetings, we recognize that there are some individuals at the campus that don't understand how inclement weather pay works and don't understand the policy. And so one outcome of this committee is to recommend additional training pertaining to that, to make sure that we are compensating our employees that are working during inclement weather, that we're compensating them appropriately.
Bill Ray, I've come from outside contracting, 25 years experience. I've been here 4 years. And one thing I've noticed about everybody in this room, pretty much, we're an invisible minority. We're not to be seen, heard, or anything. Everybody goes around the campus, they don't want to see us. But they come into like this room, they want to know the microphones are going to work, the lights are going to be on, they're comfortable. That's what you're selling, is a good educational environment. All we're basically, that I can tell, we're looking for a decent pay, respect, a chance to shine, and not worry about the future. Construction pays better, but 6 months out of the year you're laid off. That's one of my reasons for being here. I like the idea of a stable work environment.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how to speak to this in some kind of a realistic way. None of us know what the future is going to bring. None of us. And all I can tell you is what my intent is and what we're trying to do. And what we're trying to do is to grow the university, to have more resources than we have today, to offer better programs than we offer today, to do what we can to promote high quality of life in and around South Central Kansas. That's pretty much what we're about. I think that will work. If I didn't think it would work, I wouldn't have come here. The evidence for next year is it is starting to work. We had a 90% increase in applications for the freshman class, 90%. We've admitted 40% more students than we did last year. So I'm expecting a freshman class of 15 to 25% larger than last year's class. I'm expecting about 100 more transfer students based on the data I've seen, and somewhere between 200 and 300 more graduate students, most of them from India. We've all of a sudden been discovered by India, and so we're going to see a lot more Indian students here. That means if all of that really happens, and we're talking about the decisions of 17-year-olds here, so understand. If all of that really happens, we're talking about 600 to 800 more students on campus next year than we had this year. Would I be surprised if it were 400? No. Would I be surprised if it were 1,000? No. We don't have a clue because we've not ever done this before. This is all new news. But all of the evidence we have today is that that's so. Our reservations for housing are about twice as high as they were last year at the same time. In all of our housing, we have about 400 beds total left out of over 1,200 beds. Last year at this time, we had about 500 or 600 taken. So this is a really big change. We will start a waiting list for Shocker Hall. Not that it's, quotes, full, but all beds are currently spoken for, and we know that kids will come and go, and they won't like their roommate and all the other stuff that happens. So there's a waiting list, but we're still filling Fairmount Towers, so we still have space. But we're in better shape than we were. So the evidence is that this will work. But I can't guarantee you the future. Nobody can guarantee you the future. Do I think that your employment here will be stable? I pretty much do. And I'm not, whether you say civil service, you don't say civil service, honestly, the stability issue I don't think is the issue. I think that's pretty much so. I didn't come here to tear down this university. I love it too much. I came here to build it, to make it better, to make it bigger, to make it stronger. And that's what we're about. That's what we're trying to do. To do that, we have to have reasonable pay. We have to have reasonable benefits. We have to have reasonable support. We have to have modern capacities that we did not invest in. Don't know why, but we didn't. So we're starting to invest in those things now. This is the first new residence hall on campus since 1966. That's the year I graduated from high school, and I'm an old man. So that means there's some big things that we're trying to make happen here to make this a more appealing campus so that people want to be here, and that creates not only stability but growth and opportunity. And so it isn't just that we have the jobs we have, but if you have more people, you're going to need more supervisors, you're going to need more activities, you're going to need more things happening on the campus. And that's our intent. With the innovation campus, there will be two types of buildings on the innovation campus. There will be those that we own, and those are run like any other university building. And then there will be those that will be owned by partners. And what that means is that we will have a private sector person come in and build a building and lease it to people who need to be working with us. And that building will be theirs for 30 to 60 years. At the end of that time, that building will revert to university ownership. But in between, it's their building. So what they do with their building, other than they have to comply with who's in it, in terms of who leases it from them, it has to be people related to the university and with certain rules. Other than that, they pretty much run it as their building. But that's no different than Walmart or anybody else. There will be some of those as well. But there will be university-owned buildings, and we will treat them like any other building at the university, if that's helpful in terms of understanding what we're doing.
Hi, thanks. You had mentioned something about legislation in the state of Kansas being on hold for removing classified employees, civil servants. If we vote no, do you have any more information on that? What would that mean?
If we vote no, all it's going to do is open the door for that legislation to be moved forward. And the proposal right now, the way it reads, is to start with lawyers that work for the state of Kansas and supervisors, so anybody that has other classified employees working for them would be moved, and any IT personnel. That's the first tier that would be moved automatically, immediately to the unclassified service. And then to follow that on, anybody that is promoted or demoted, anybody that's a new hire, or anybody that's a rehire would all be moved into unclassified service. So eventually, the classified service within the state of Kansas would be completely done away with. And at this point, it would be through attrition. It wouldn't be a blanket move. Did that answer your question?
I wonder, could you tell me why the longevity was changed from the white papers? Like you're doing away with it now, but it's in the white paper. It's a different proposal.
The white paper was done before we found out that the state wanted to do away with it. This recent change that we put up on the board today was so that those of us that are currently receiving the longevity pay will at least be able to keep that pay. I mean, it's going to be a one-time shot. It'll end this year. But the legislation on 2 different bills right now is to do away with it completely. If we let that legislation go before we see any of that added in, we're going to lose it. So anybody that's making in that $400 to $1,000 range is just going to lose that as part of their income. And it's going to be gone, and you won't see it again. Our proposal is to take that money currently and roll it into our base pay, and that becomes our new base salary. So at least we get this last year of it.
Okay, but I was reading the minutes from your meetings and you were talking about changing it to calling it something else and still doing the same thing. Why is it dropped completely?
The reason we were looking at changing the name is because the legislature wants to do away with longevity pay.
But we're not going to be under the legislature.
That's right. But there are still things that can be mandated by the legislators that the school has to do. If they decide they want to do away with longevity pay, there's no obligation to continue that.
I think the difference is between being a civil service employee and being a state worker. We're all still going to be working for the state of Kansas, and therefore a law that affects all state employees affects you whether you're in the civil service or not. So if they do away with longevity in the state of Kansas, they do away with longevity in the state of Kansas. It's not related specifically to being a civil service worker, unless it specifically says we're only doing away with longevity for civil service workers, if that's helpful. It's just, I'm a state employee, Mary's a state employee the same way, and so we don't have longevity in our appointments, but if they decide to do away with it for all state employees, anyone else who had it would eliminate.
What's the verbiage on the vote question? How is that going to be stated? We've had these issues before on ballots where the question wasn't clear.
Emily's the one that's putting that together. She's the chair of our communications committee.
The way that the vote will be worded, to hopefully alleviate that issue, the way the vote will be worded is it'll ask, do you want the classified civil service to transfer to the university support staff per the KSA, what is it, 76-715A? That one. At that point, your choices will either be yes, I want to move to university support staff, period, or no, I do not want to see us move to university support staff, period. So to be very clear, yes, I support us moving, no, I do not support us moving. Does that answer your question for you? Perfect.
No ifs or anything?
Nope, no ifs. It's, I tried to make it as black and white as possible. Yes, I want to see this. No, I do not want to see this.
This is really loud. I was looking on page 5 on the vacation. It says allowances will be made for selling hours back when vacation is maxed out. Right now, if you hit the max of 304, what does this mean?
That's a statement that should have been struck. It's not going to happen.
Okay.
You're not going to be given the option to sell your vacation back if you max it out.
Okay. Because I have worked someplace else where if you got to the max and you needed to buy a refrigerator, you could buy back 40 hours of vacation.
Yeah, we're not going to be doing that.
Okay.
And that statement, we had discussion about it. It should have been struck and didn't get done in the paper.
Okay, I just wanted to
I'm glad
check.
you brought that up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Last sentence. Yes.
Yeah, I think so.
I'd like to know what else that we've been given here in these white pages is we're going to be voting on, but it's not actually what we've been given. I've heard at least 2 different things that are in this paper that we're supposed to believe you that that's what we're voting on and not what you've given us in writing. So what else is different than what we've been given?
As far as I know, those are the only 2 items at this point. But we've got 3 weeks before the vote. These will all be fine-tuned, and everybody will be made aware of any other changes or any other discrepancies that have taken place in this.
Can I make a clarification point? If you came to the last round of town halls, you may have received a copy of the white papers. As we tried to stress as much as possible, those were living, breathing documents. They have changed since then based off of the input that we received at those town halls. So the ones that you received today are the final proposals. Does that hopefully help clarify what you may have read in the previous white papers versus today's final proposal?
Well, I think what he's pointing out is there's been two in here, just like this last one, that shouldn't have been there.
Okay.
And we will make sure that everybody's aware of, we'll fine tune it.
Kevin wants to clarify that those hours there are just if you need help voting, logging in and doing your WSU and your password. But you can click anywhere from any computer into my WSU 24 hours from 8 o'clock April 30th to noon May 2nd, anytime to vote. You don't have to just vote during those times.
I had a question on the retirement. Is the retirement age based on what Social Security says? Is, like, if we wanted to take early retirement and then we have, say, the 25 years in and have over the 1,200 hours, would we get paid then for it? Or do we have to wait till Social Security says we get full retirement benefits?
I'll do my best to answer that question. To be retirement eligible in CAPERS, it's an individualized formula for each individual based on your years of service and your age. So that would have to be calculated for an individual. If you're interested in that, you can contact our office and I can help you answer that individually.
She's coming.
From the comment that you made, from what it sounds like, whether we vote yes or no, the legislator's going to change us anyway?
There's a good chance of that, but we don't know what they're gonna do. But yeah, there's legislation from many different angles looking at getting rid of the civil service. Gene?
I have one more quick question. Are we going to be contract workers? Like some of the other university workers, like they're on yearly contracts?
If the vote is voted to move to the university support staff in the proposal, it is not proposed that you would receive annual appointments, if that's what you're asking. Like the unclassified employees receive annual appointments, but that is different than being a contract employee. So I just want to be clear on, did I answer your question?
I'm Rick Oberdeen with the carpenter shop here at the physical plant there. I've worked for university for 9 years. I've been in 3 different departments, and my evaluation has always said exceeds expectations. But I've had people in different departments end up with the same thing on their evaluation that I ended up. Sometimes they can't make it work on time, have been in leave without pay, and other things. Now, how are you going to change how you're doing the evaluations?
do my best to give you an overarching answer that the university is going to develop some trainings to emphasize on not only completing the new evaluation forms if the vote were to be yes, but also training for supervisors on best practices in evaluating employees' performance. One thing that I think is very important that you pointed out is supervisors' evaluation is their perceptions of that individual's work performance. That is their evaluation of that individual's work performance. And all of us have opinions, and oftentimes they're different. But often, when you have different supervisors, those supervisors can have different expectations of their employees. Additionally, compounding it, as you've noticed, you've noted that you also, as a coworker, have expectations of your coworkers, and you evaluate your coworkers, and you compare them to yourselves. And I think that's great, because we always are, like President Bardo, we want to raise the bar. We want to do the best that we can. But those things are very apparent when it becomes supervisors evaluating employees. We do not have control over their evaluation of their direct reports. We can provide them best practices and trainings, and that's what we plan to do.
Excuse me, currently you said that supervisors are not performing those evaluations, and is anything being done about that in the new proposal? Will they be reprimanded?
Yeah, I have been told that. I can't tell you that there's been a systematic study of that. It certainly is the lore that that is so. If that is so, it is an acceptable performance. And we will be continuing to develop our capacities to evaluate. I'm evaluated, I evaluate my vice presidents. I anticipate that they will evaluate, and that we will continue doing so throughout the entire organization. And if a person is not doing their job, and they're a supervisor, we'll try to help them learn how to be a supervisor, be a better one. But if they can't or won't do the job, then we'll work with that and get somebody in that role who can be a supervisor. It's just really important that we do the best job we can of making sure that you have the resources you need to do your job, and that you're paid fairly for the work that you're doing. And that if you come to work and you work hard, you do a good job, and the guy next to you just shows up and goes on a 2-hour coffee break and goes and hides in the storeroom or whatever, well, that ought to be noted, and that ought to be dealt with in an evaluation. And that is what we're trying to accomplish across the whole university. Now, we're also dealing with real human beings. We know that. And so these things are always going to be variable. But we're going to continue to try to improve our capacity and continue to try to improve our training. If, in fact, you know of situations where people are not being evaluated, and I will say this outright, some of you may be the supervisors, you're not doing your job. That is absolutely failing to do the most basic job, which is letting the folks who work for you know how they're doing. That's absolutely crucial. And we've got to do that. We have to do that. It's the only way that we can continue to move forward, and it's the only way in the end. Let's face it, I mean, I don't know about you, but when I'm in a situation where I'm really working hard and the guy next to me isn't, it really hurts my morale. It makes me feel really bad. Why am I doing all this and I'm getting the same thing they're getting? And so a lot of what we're trying to do is to get a situation set up where the people who come to work and do their job get rewarded, and those who come to work and hide out and don't, we try to help them learn what it means, and that we differentiate there. That's what we're trying to do. But that also means if you know supervisors who are not doing their evaluations, they are failing in their most basic performance.
I think I heard you say a few minutes ago that this was the final proposal. Is that correct?
It's pretty close to it, yeah.
Final one? Okay, you said that this is a living, breathing document. Is that also correct?
It's a proposal.
Okay.
So there can still be changes.
So there's nothing to prevent any changes at the last minute of this right here?
You will know about them before a vote.
When?
We got 3 weeks before the vote. You will know about it before the vote if there's any changes.
Okay. Is there going to be any final copy that we have to sign or everybody reads?
No.
Or how's that going to be?
There won't be a final copy that anybody signs, but there will be a final copy that people will have access to read. Now, bear in mind that there is still changes that can be made after the vote, but they shouldn't be significant. All those changes that will happen after the vote will be to put this stuff into process. This stuff still has to be put into university policy. It's not policy yet. Once the change is made and the vote's taken, if it's an affirmative vote, policy has to be changed, and then the president has to approve that policy.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is there's absolutely no binding, or nothing binding in this. This isn't even a contract, basically. This is just...
No, it's not a contract. Nobody's signing it. It is not a contract.
So this is basically the panel's ideas on what they want to do, and you ask us to vote on it, and we vote on it, and then you turn around and change it at the last minute, and then there we sit. Is that what you're saying?
After a vote, there won't be any changes to this.
You just said there were going to be
No, I
changes.
said this would be implemented into policy.
You just sat there and said there were going to be changes made after the vote.
The changes will be made to the policies based on what is in this white paper that you all vote on.
Okay. Thank you.
And you will have the final copy before the vote.
That gives me two questions then. The first one is regarding that, is for President Bardot, are you supportive of what's here?
Yes, this has all been reviewed with me, and what I asked the folks was, after reviewing it with me, that if Mary was comfortable with the money as proposed, that I was perfectly fine with it. I've talked to Mary since then. She was comfortable with the money as proposed. I just didn't want to speak for her without it because I didn't have the detailed knowledge of our budget that she has. So as of right now, everything that is in there, minus the 2 errors, I'm supportive of.
Okay. The second question, I'm of the understanding that KU has begun the process of conversion from USS to unclassified. Is that true? And so, if that's the first of the region schools to have gone to USS, and now we're getting all the rest of the dominoes tumbling, is that the long-term plan, is to move everybody into unclassified?
Yeah, you can speak to that.
My first gut response would be that each region institution can operate individually. KU, I have spoke with some of the administration at that university. And their intent from moving from USS to Board of Regents unclassified employees is their institution at KU made the decision that they would like to manage one type of an employee class. So that was their region institution decision to do that move. I can tell you, administration at Wichita State, there's not been any discussion or any intent of Wichita State making that same decision. We simply inquired with KU to get an understanding of why they made that move. At this point, to my knowledge, Wichita State does not have any intent or is exploring that option.
It's never even come up. I can tell you my philosophy of this, and maybe that's helpful. I think that appointments at the university should be based on the person's role in the university. And so a faculty member has a different type of an appointment than I have as an administrator, than you have as a person working in a non-faculty position in the university. And I believe that if you are in a policy position in a university, where you affect the policy of the institution and how it implements that policy, then you should have a limited appointment because your impact is quite different. If you were a person doing a job at the university and you do not affect directly the policy of the institution, then I think that your protection should be different as well. I am a 100% at-will employee, meaning if the regents go into closed session, vote me off the island, I'm gone. Okay, not tomorrow, not the next day, I'm gone. Well, that's very appropriate given my job. I don't believe that's appropriate for a person who is a carpenter. You're doing a different type of work at the university, important type of work, don't get me wrong, but a different kind of work. Your work affects thousands of people if they walk across what you've done or live in the building you've put back together, but not in the same ways it does if I mess it up. And so there are different types. From a philosophical perspective, I don't see a reason to have one type of employee. That's my philosophy. I believe that the structure of employment should be based on the nature of what the person does, what the nature of the job is, and what the nature of the market is in which they're part. So that's the way I approach things. I am not a great believer in doing things because it's convenient for me, except for parking. But I am a great believer in doing things that are right. So, for example, it may be easier if we do, well, everybody has to do X because I just got one thing to do and that's real easy. Well, I don't care about that. If X actually makes it harder for you to get your job done, then it isn't appropriate. It's not me. So my basic approach is that the nature of the appointment should fit what we're asking you to do. I'm perfectly comfortable and feel I could defend anywhere, including in the newspapers, why we would have 3 types of employment here at the university based on the nature of what it is we're asking people to do and the kind of commitments we're asking them to make. I just don't find that to be difficult. But the bottom line in the end is I want whatever we do to be supportive of you doing your job the way you think it ought to be done and well. And I'm trying to simplify some things, but those things don't include combining everybody under one lump of employment. I think our policies, processes, and procedures are really cumbersome, and I'm trying to simplify those. But that's different than we're going to change how everybody's employed, because I don't think that's helpful. I just don't think it's useful, if that's helpful in terms of a conversation.
My question is kind of off that. Of course, rumor mill, you know how that is. You get the good and the bad together. But I've heard that there have been positions that were classified where people have retired or left, and those were reviewed and then changed from classified status to unclassified status. Is that true?
I don't think that's a rumor. I think that's true. And it was true because the nature of the job changed.
Okay. I guess that's a little confusing to people, though, because with what's going on right now, having that take place, people are thinking, okay, well, they're just going to, once we leave, change all the classified positions to unclassified.
Yeah, no, I don't think so. I think where I know of that, and I do know of a couple because I signed off on a couple, it was because the scope of the job and the nature of the job changed so much, it made no sense. So when it went through a review inside HR, it was pretty clear that it was no longer a classified type position. And it was much more of a policy position with a broader span of control, et cetera. And therefore, it was more appropriate as an unclassified position. We don't mean to hold you, but we will gladly answer any questions you have. There's no, please.
Just a statement. I've been here just about 34 years, and presidents have come, go. getting to know you. I can see your vision, so I will work with you.
Thank you. I've actually been associated with this university longer than you have. I came here in 1973 as a real shaved-tailed assistant professor that thought I knew a whole lot and didn't know jack. And I had the good fortune to meet my wife in Neff Hall. And she's put up with me for 38 years, which I'm still not quite sure what it says about her. But this university has a great future. Whether you vote for this or against this, it has a great future, and we want you to be part of it. This is not a sales pitch why it ought to be this way or that way. My basic feeling is I want you to do what you believe is right. I want you to vote your conscience, and that I will commit this administration will work with you, whether you're in civil service or you're a university employee. That is where we are. That is where we will be. Many of you who drive around campus, you see me wave at you when you go by. I do that because I do recognize the work you're doing. I do understand that. And we don't operate without you. That's not real. You and I are in different kinds of positions, but we're in support positions of those folks who are delivering our direct service, which is primarily research and teaching and outreach to the community. And that gives us both a very important job, but sometimes an invisible job because we're not the one on the front line. And that means sometimes we feel like we're not cared about. I get that. It makes it harder when I don't control things. If the legislature gives you a raise, whether anyone else at the university gets one, you get one. If the legislature doesn't give you a raise, if everybody else gets one, you don't get one. I mean, it's just the way it is. But please understand, however you vote, you are a critical part of this university. This university cannot operate without you. It will not operate without you. And we're going to continue to move forward to make this the best possible place and to make it a better place to work. That's what we're going to do. That's who we are. It's what we're about. I am of Wichita. My wife is from here. Her family lives up 29th and Oliver. And we're here. We're here for the duration. And so this is not about, well, gosh, if you go the wrong way. It's not about that at all. It's fundamentally about we're going to move forward. You're a critical part of this. And however you vote, you're a critical part of it. And we're going to work with you the best we can to make this the best place we can for you to be. That's where we are. Thank you all, and we'll hang around. Do you have anything you want to talk about private?